So hello everyone, this is Juan Balmori here. I'm a program manager in the Outlook Add-ins team. It's great to be here with you today, and I want to share with you. Ignite was last month. I had a chance to participate in the last community call, but in this one, I want to talk to you about some important announcements from the team that happened at Ignite, and I want to make sure that you guys have visibility. The blog post that talks about everything that my team announced at Ignite. I'm going to focus on the Outlook part because I am the Outlook PM. But anyways, so basically during the event, we actually announced two important updates. The first one is that our Mailbox 1.11 requirement set, it's GA. So we're going to talk a little bit more details about what's included here. And then we also announced a super cool feature. I think I already talked with you on this audience about, which is smart alerts. So I can give you a demo about it and tell you how can you use it. And then finally, we talk a little bit about how can you combine these two features to create better experiences and allow your users to send better emails. So let's get started. So part one, event-based. Event-based add-ins, for those of you who haven't heard, this is something that my team has been working on a lot in the last year or so. It's basically a technology that enables you to launch an add-in automatically. Subscribe to events, So while the user is composing an email, your add-in can actually launch in specific aspects of it without any user inputs. So this is different from the model that we have today. Well, that I wouldn't say today, but we used to have task panes where you click on a button and the task pane pops, and then only when the task pane is active, your add-in can interact with Outlook. In this case, you can launch your add-in automatically with certain events. So basically, at Build earlier in the year, we announced the GA of a few events, but now we are announcing the GA of more of them. So you can build more richer solutions. And by the way, Eric later in the call is going to show you a very real and very cool scenario that is using all these capabilities. So basically, event-based add-ins, again, completely new way to interact with Outlook add-ins. They require no user inputs to be activated. They will basically, your add-in will activate where certain events happen. They are UI-less in operation, so the add-in is launched via event. They are short running. They're supposed to be short running. This is an intent that that the feature has. We don't want to having an add-in running permanently on the background as we used to have in BSTO, because that to some degree degrades the experience a little bit in Outlook. So the idea here is that the event happens, and you perform some action, and then the add-in can shut down, right? They are for compose right now. So all the events that I'm going to talk about are in compose mode. So we don't have this yet for reading. And finally, there's going to be obviously no UI disrupting, So everything is going to happen in the background. That doesn't mean that you cannot provide certain points at which users can interact with your add-in, but you cannot pop dialogues and stuff like that. Right? So, well, what's included in the announcement? The announcement is that the Mailbox 1.11 is GA, starting on the build that you see on the screen. You will be able to use these add-ins, which basically, if you install the latest version of Outlook, you should be able to do it in the monthly channels, right? So we added a recipients change event. Every time you change recipients in the to CC or BCC when you're sending an email, you can trigger an event. You can handle an event, actually. Every time you attach documents into emails and appointments, and you can also trigger an event, subscribe to an appointment change or a recurrence change event. It is useful, to update your backends with new times and stuff. And then we also have an info bar dismissed. So one of the ways that you can interact in this new world with your users is by showing notification bars in Outlook, and those can be dismissed. So basically, if the user clicks dismissed, you can handle those events. And finally, given that, again, this is short running, so which means that you don't have permanently an add-in running in the background, But it creates and we'll talk on it in more details about how you can use the session data object. But the idea is that you can have a property bag that you can have access for the lifetime of the composition, so that you can store state across multiple events, right? So and make your add-ins more efficient. So let's talk about enough talking. Let's talk about the demo here. So one of our closest partners are using this technology on the online signature, email signatures. For example, when you're sending an email to external or internal users. No. So the idea here is that I create a new email. I'm going to switch gears to Outlook, and then as you can see, I created a new email and I added a signature here. So this is the on-compose event that we shipped a long time ago, right? But now, in addition to that, if I add an email to someone who is internal, the internal signature remains here. But as soon as I will try some external address here. As soon as I add an external recipient, you will see that the signature was changed. And I put it back, and if I remove it, the signature is going to switch back to the internal email. So this is very simple, but you can see it's like your Outlook add-in is seamlessly integrated into the Outlook experience. And this is just one scenario that you can enable. I want you to think about other scenarios that you can implement using this. You will have this event for, again, all the different events that I described previously. And it's really super simple to create an add-in like this. I mean, if you're already creating Outlook add-ins, you know that there's a manifest, which is an XML file that defines how your add-in is going to behave within Outlook. So basically, you just need to add a runtimes element indicating that your add-in is going to be having launch event extension points, which means that your add-in is going to be running kind of in the background in certain events. That's why you use the runtimes element here, indicating what are the files that you're adding that have the event handlers of your add-in. And then after you declare that, we have this new extension point that we call launch event. And within launch event, we have basically here's where you subscribe to the events you need. In this case, I am subscribing to all the events that are available. So I'm only using one of them, by the way, but here is where you say, hey, I want to subscribe to the message send or the composing emails or appointments, etc. So, and then, this file that you declare here on the runtimes element, as you can see under resources, if you go down here, you will see that it's pointing to a JavaScript file, and that JavaScript file in this case has the implementation of such events. So, sorry, one more thing in the manifest. As you can see here, we declare the event that I am subscribing and what's the name of the handler. So recipients change, as you can see here, has an on-message recipient change handler. And of course, if I go to commands.js, I will see that effectively there is an on-message recipient change event. And this is where I basically check if the user is internal or external. And then I do an internal, or I insert external or internal signature, right? So it's very straightforward. Moving on, going back to my deck, as I mentioned previously, the runtime, I want to share a bit more details of how the runtime works, because we try to do this, optimize this flow. So basically what happens here, if you see the time, this chart, this line denotes the time. At T0, when a user creates a new email, you will see that the uncomposed event gets triggered, and basically we add, in this case, a signature to the email, or you imagine that you can do other actions, but I'm just going to the signatures example here. User creates new email, the signature is inserted, and then at some moment in time, the user starts composing an email, and if this is more than 5 minutes, basically T0 plus 5, if no other events happen, what happens is that our sandbox and your add-in basically shut down. So basically the add-in is no longer using any memory or anything like that, right? However, it's often could happen that after you spend so much time creating a new email that you add more recipients to the email. So what happens if I add new recipients on the email? Basically at T0 plus 5 plus X, what will happen is that we again are going to launch, a JavaScript engine super efficient in the background. So this shutdowns and creation of the runtime, for that you need the session data, right? And this is where the session data makes sense because you can store, different types of metadata you need to have across multiple instantiations of the sandbox, right? So this session state is going to be there, for the lifetime of the composition, which means that if you close the email on compose, that session state is gonna blow away, right? So that is just a brief example of explanation of what you can do with event-based. Eric is going to show you basically a more exciting demo than I did, and it's available, I think, as a pattern and practice. So that's awesome. The second announcement that we made was around smart alerts. I see that there are a few questions here. Can the email signature pull information from AD? Absolutely, they can pull information from AD. Yes. The other question is, does this work in Outlook Online? From George, absolutely. This works right now. In the announcement covers Windows. Thank you for asking that, by the way, and online, and very soon also the Mac, and eventually we'll also have it on the mobile devices. And that's the plan. Okay. So smart alerts. What is a smart alerts? Well, turns out, and I will explain it better with a demo. But this feature it's mostly around. We recently did a research was made in the Outlook team, and we find out very interesting information that users actually really appreciate when we help them, to send better emails. And a quick example of that, let me show you. When you create a new email, right? And for example, let's say that in the body of the email, you refer to a file, right? This is an example that actually is implemented in the product, but it's very relevant because now you can do it with an add-in. So for example, if I check out this picture of my dog. And by the way, I'm going to send it to myself because I don't want to bother Hitesh with this. But basically, what I'm typing here is that I'm referring to a picture that I am not attaching it to the document, no? So basically, when I click on send, what's going to happen here is that, hey, I have this semi-intelligent add-in that is telling me, hey, looks like you are forgetting to include an attachment here, right? So then at this moment, I can choose to send it or don't send it. So basically what happened is that when I send, the email, there was another event that was launched, and I was handling the send event, doing some logic, and then basically halting the send of the email. There are a few options here that I will describe later, but basically, I am sending this message. Hey, it looks like you're forgetting to include an attachment. Okay, so in this case, I would say, okay, yes, that makes total sense, that I add an attachment here, and in this case, effectively, I'm going to add an attachment of this is a real picture of my dog, which is too slow to load, but there you go. I'm here with my dog when he was a puppy. And now, hold on a second. If I remove this attachment, and if I send the email, I have the attachment and it's going to go, right? So that's basically what Smart Alerts is all about. It's about handling the on-send event and then having the capability of you can potentially block the send of the email, and you can provide either suggestions or you can actually enforce something. So you will be able to say something along the lines of, you're not going to be able to send the email unless you do other tasks, like in scenarios like, for example, classification or other types of important processes. You can block the user from actually sending the email, right? So this is nothing new. We ship a feature that is similar to this one, but I will tell you what it has a few downsides, and among others that you cannot use them in the store. But anyways, the coding is exactly the same, because from send, if I go to the manifest, you will see that I have a message sent here event. I have a handler, and then this event specifically has another attribute that it's send mode. Send mode is important because you're able to change how the feature works by using this parameter right here. I will tell you more details about that in a second. If we go back to the deck, so basically, one mode of operation is to allow the send. You use this mode in the case you want to provide a recommendation. So like, hey, it seems to be that you are it will be nice if you add additional content, or you're checking maybe the language of the body, and you say, hey, maybe you should rethink about how you're typing this, and the user can actually make the call if this is a recommendation, so I can send it anyway. No, so it's not a hard block basically. Your guys are able to customize a few things on this dialog. Obviously, the text that is presented here. Then there's a mode 2 is block the send. You change this in the manifest. And the idea here is that you don't have the send anyway option here. So basically here you want to enforce that the user is doing something before they send the email. In this case, classification is a typical example, no? That you need to classify the content that you're sending. And in some conditions, this should be enforced. So this is how you do it here, right? Now, the other thing is a long-running operation. So we are one of the design aspects that we want to recommend you guys here is that this should be fast operations. So we don't want to hold the send of the email for too much time. So basically, if you're adding, it's going to be taking, I think it's more than 5 seconds right now. I think that's the telemetry we're getting to see if we need more time or not. But if the add-in is kind of slow, what we're going to show, we have a long-running operation. No? Then we're basically going to show a dialog like this that indicates that your add-in is doing some processing, so that the user is not kind of surprised at what's going on here, right? So if you see this dialog, that's not a good sign. I mean, you should strive to never show this dialog. But if that's the case, we understand that sometimes when we call services, it could be slow, and then we provide this experience for the user, no? Long-running operations. And then finally, as previously mentioned, we shipped a send event long time ago as part of a 1.8 requirement set. But that had that huge downside that if the add-in for whatever reason wasn't available, then the user was not able to send emails. Because it was that important by the time we shipped this, that with some customers, like, it's okay that the user cannot send emails if the add-in is not available. But we know that that's kind of very heavy-handed. For that reason, add-ins who were implementing on send back then weren't allowed in the store. But now, if the add-in is not available, we are going to allow the user to send the email. But we'll notify them. No, this is the experience that we want to provide. If the add-in is not available, we will tell the user, and then it's up to the user to basically try it later or to send it anyway, send the email. This is a one-time warning that we're going to send. Okay. And that's basically it. About one more thing. So we think that it's a combination of both features that I mentioned here, event-based add-ins pro smart alerts. One recommendation that we have is don't leave expensive operations until send is clicked. So if you're going to be analyzing attachments, because we have an attachments change event, as you will see later with Eric's demo, we really don't want you to be kind of, if you need to encrypt them, for instance, that's an expensive operation. If you leave all those expensive operations until the end, it's going to be a bad experience because it's going to take time, and the send is going to be halted for maybe too many seconds, right? So what we are recommending is use event-based, for example, in the attachment scenario, to do as much pre-processing as you can. So if you need to encrypt the attachments, you do it using the attachment change event, and you are kind of in the background processing those attachments. So when the time the send comes, you basically already did this pre-processing, and then you're doing the final stages at the time of send, no? The final details, so sort of saying, before actually allowing the user to send the email. Right? So we recommend you to use those two technologies to provide the optimal experiences. All right. And with that, I would like to know if there are any questions here. Can the event-based add-ins be triggered by a user typing a certain word? Nima is asking this. No, we cannot. We cannot. Right now, we don't have a typed event. We don't have a specific. This is an event that actually, it's a good question. This has never existed for a reason, and the main reason is because that is very expensive. I mean, if you are handling an event every time the user is, key down or key pressed events, they could damage the experience of Outlook in a big way. No, so we we don't usually allow those events to happen. But maybe you can in another event you can do this, getting entire body and analyze the content. Yes, Eugene. One of the benefits of smart alerts is that we're going to allow these add-ins in the store. Session data object it's been asked here, needs to be stored centrally. Well, the session data object, it's actually an in-memory place where you can store data. And again, it's going to be available just for the lifetime of the composition. We are planning to add another similar session data object for the lifetime of the Outlook session, which seems to be what you're asking here, and that's going to come later. Okay, I will be replying some of these questions on the chat. Thank you very much for the questions. Very good questions, by the way.